Hello and what's up to you all, Mindsetters? Welcome to it. This is your best show ever. You know, your favorite show. It is Len Extra with me, Abram, and Mr. Peter. It is the PA squared team, which means your personal assistant, Peter and Abram. So, Peter, how are you?
I'm good, Abraham, absolutely. And yourself?
I'm awesome, man.
All right, I've missed out on 2 weeks of a live show, and it feels like forever. It really does. So
Yep.
I'm kind of great to be back.
I think you missed more last week because we were doing inflation with John, I think.
It was 2 weeks ago, and he was very rude, you know, because I was watching
You
him.
missed out on that one.
No, I watched him, and he started off talking about me being inflated and things, and that was just downright
So you were
rude
watching.
and unacceptable. So I remember that, and I'll get him back.
It's payback time.
It's payback time.
What are we
absolutely.
doing today?
Well, first of all, guys, I'm in a slight state of depression because my right-hand man, James, who is always here, is not here tonight. They had a function on at school. So unfortunately, I got no one to be rude to tonight, except you.
Well, but
Abraham.
well, at
So
least you'll be
this is
getting
it.
the right answers today, unlike some of the answers that you normally get from James.
Well, this is it. What should it like? I don't know. Right, okay. All right, folk. Welcome. It's Thursday, which is exciting times. Why? Because first of all, it means it's mathematical literacy time. And second of all, it means it's 2:45 Friday. Friday tomorrow. Exciting stuff. You know, even though it's been, well, for me anyway, it's been a one-day week because our kids at private schools only came back today. And I know the government schools had Wednesday off as well.
Yes.
And so did our boys. But you know, it feels like it's been forever. I don't know. This week's just not kicking into gear.
Really?
Yeah, no, it's not good at all. Hey?
No,
You don't
ju-
sound
ju-
sympathetic
no,
here, so let me
just-
just get on with the show.
No,
All right.
before you get on
Yeah.
with the show, you know, I know that you've also been entering for our competition, the Test Yourself questions.
No, I haven't actually.
You
but
haven't?
yeah.
Well, good for you. Well, mindset is I'll be announcing the winner during the show. So if you have entered, make sure that you stay glued on your screen because I'll be announcing the winner. But for you to stand a chance of winning this awesome Casio calculator, all you need to do it is to give us some right answers on the link that is provided on facebook.com/LenExtra. Also like our page on Facebook, share it with your friends, your class teachers, and everyone. Tell them to tune in on Len Extra and follow us on Twitter at Len Extra. And I believe we also have a challenge question that Peter will tell you more about later on.
Right, absolutely, folks. Right, what are we doing tonight? Tonight, what we're going to be looking at is this whole concept of working with map scales. Now, guys, what I want to stress is this, that next week, we are going to be looking at this whole concept of map work. And inside that whole section of map work, there's a little isolated section, which is all about scales. Okay, and that's what we're going to look at tonight, first of all. And we thought we'd start off by looking at that. And then next week, we bring in this whole concept of map work. And you'll see how the scale work fits into that. So next week should be quite an interesting program as well. Okay,
Awesome.
So what are we going to try and summarize tonight? Let's have a look at our notes over here. Firstly, in this lesson, we get introduced and do questions about number scales, bar scales, determining scales, calculating lengths and distances when map or plan scale is known, and then calculating scales when distances are actually known. And our challenge question for tonight is really straightforward. No, it's not. It's actually quite tough, but it's very, very short. Okay, and this is what tends to catch a lot of guys in exams. Right, and when I say guys, I also mean girls. Sorry about that. So this is what catches a lot of candidates in the exams. They see a very short question and think, well, that must be a very easy one. Remember, folk, you don't look at the length of the question. What determines how difficult that question's actually going to be? Bram, it's not the length of the question, but it's the mark allocation. Agreed. That's what you were going to
Yes.
say. Absolutely. Okay. So it's the mark allocation. So if I gave you a question and it was only a one-line question, but it had 10 marks, you would know you're going to have to answer quite a bit, or your answer is going to have to be quite substantial. If I gave you a 4, 5, or 6 line and it was only worth 1 mark, it would probably only require yes or no, or north or south or east or west or whatever the case is. So look at that mark allocation. Now for your challenge question, I haven't put a mark allocation here at all, but let me tell you, it's not called a challenge question for no reason. Let's have a look at it. So here it is. The distance between Durban and Johannesburg is 570 kilometers. Would it be practical to use a map with a scale of 1 is to 125,000? Explain. Sure. Okay. And hopefully as we go through this lesson, you'll be able to look at this challenge question and say, I know exactly what Peter's trying to get at here. Okay. So let's have a look at our summary notes. Here we go. Now, first of all, what we need to say about scale is this. That with scale, we have two types of scales. We have a number scale and we have a bar scale, okay, or a picture scale. Now, a number scale such as 1 is to 20,000, okay, so this 1 is to 20,000, that's a number scale. In fact, it's not a rocket science at all. A number scale because there are numbers involved. 1 is to 20,000, 20,000, okay? So, number scales such as 1 is to 20,000 means that 1 unit on the map represents 20,000 units in real life. Now, you will notice from the notes that I've produced here that I've underlined the word units. Now, why have I underlined the word units? Every single year, when I teach this section to my grade 10s, to my grade 11s, and to my grade 12s, and obviously understand that we just touch on it in grade 10, we go a little deeper in grade 11, and then we go a lot deeper in it with grade 12, okay? So whether you're grade 10, 11, or 12, and you're watching this program, this is for you. But every single year, irrespective of the grade, when I say the scale is 1 is to 20,000, hands go up. And guys say, sir, 1 watt is equal to 20,000 watt. Is it 1 millimeter represents 20,000 millimeters? Or is it 1 centimeter represents 20,000 centimeters? Could it be 1 meter represents 20,000 meters? Well, guys, here's the truth. It really doesn't matter. As long as the units on the one side is equal to the units on the other side. So that's why I've used the word units. So you could read that as this. The number scale such as 1 millimeter represents 20,000 millimeters means that 1 millimeter on the map represents 20,000 millimeters in real life. You could also read it like this. Number scale such as 1 to 20,000 means that 1 centimeter on the map represents 20,000 centimeters in real life. You could also read it like this. The number scale such as 1 is to 20,000 means that 1 meter on the map represents 20,000 meters in real life. But in reality, we don't normally deal with meters. I mean, a meter is pretty long. And to have a meter this long, length this long on your map, well, that's kind of impractical. Normally, we're dealing with millimeters and centimeters. Okay, now, if I were to be facetious, what's facetious mean? Like almost sarcastic, eh? Right. If I were to be sarcastic, I could even read it like this and say 1 is to 20,000 means that 1, watch this, the length of my tongue, okay, on the map represents 20,000 lengths of my tongue in real life. You see, it doesn't matter on the unit I use. I could even say 1 length of my arm from my, what's this called, an elbow to my, I nearly said ankle, from my elbow to my wrist is equal to 20,000 lengths of my elbow to my wrist in real life, as long as the unit is the same. And that's critical when understanding scale. And if you understand that concept, that the units have to be the same, then it just makes this whole section a lot easier for you. Let's have a look at the next thing. The next thing says these units can be millimeters, centimeters, meters, or kilometers. We've discussed that. But guys, in reality, we would never use kilometers on a map. That is a huge map, impractical, not to be used. And meters, we hardly ever use meters on a map as well. Okay. Now, bar scales are presented as a picture bar. With thus use of a ruler, one can determine how many centimeters or millimeters represents a certain number of kilometers. Okay, what do I mean by that? Well, first of all, guys, this is called a picture scale, or it's called a bar scale. And you can see you've got the bars represented there. Now, how would I use that? The first thing I do is I take my ruler. And I can see from my graph here, or bar graph, that from this point through to this point represents what? It represents 60 kilometers. Okay? So that little distance from here to here, it's actually quite a big distance on this map, but from there to there, that represents 60 kilometers in real life. How much or how big is that distance? Well, we take our ruler, guys, and we put our ruler down and say, well, 60, that works out to me anyway about 140 millimeters or 14 centimeters. So for every 14 centimeters on my map, I have 60 kilometers in real life. Do you understand that? Okay. So if I were to say I'm traveling a distance of 120 kilometers, well, I know that 60 kilometers is 14 centimeters. So 120 kilometers would be 28 centimeters. So the distance, that distance, from the side of the ruler to where my finger is over here would represent, what did we say? 120 kilometers. Okay. So that, guys, is my bar scale or my picture scale. Now, remember, and this is important, when maps change size, the number scale is, this says the number scale, shouldn't be the number scale, should be the bar scales. That's bad. The bar scale is badly affected. Right. What do we mean by that? I want you to look on the screen. You can see I've got this diagram and I've got this diagram, and they're exactly the same except one is an enlargement of the other. Okay? So we've got a bar scale and then we've got a big bar scale. But I want us to have a look here and see what's happening. Can you see that in our word, we're saying 1 unit on the map represents, what does it represent? 7,562,580 units in real life. Here, the number scale is saying exactly the same thing. That 1 unit on the map represents 7,562,580 units in real life. Okay? But, look here. Guys, when I measure this, I'm landing up 10 centimeters represents 60 kilometers. Over here, I'm telling you that 15 centimeters represents 60 kilometers. Now, something's wrong. Because initially I'm telling you that that distance represents 60 kilometers. Then later on I'm telling you that this distance represents 60 kilometers. At the same time, my number scale is staying the same. Now, guys, what I need to tell you is this. The more accurate scale would be my bar scale. Okay. Why would it be my bar scale? It would be my bar scale because of that, sorry, I've messed up here. Oh my goodness, this is not a good day. I think I actually need James today, don't I? Okay. It would be the number scale is badly affected. Okay, it is the number scale because the bar scale is perfect. Even though it's changed, because what would happen is as I increase the size of the map, so the bar scale would increase as well. But the number scale stays the same. Now, guys, if I've got a map this big of an area, and I have that same area in a map that big, guys, that distance on that tiny little map can't represent the same on that big map. Okay? So as my maps increase, so my bar scale is going to increase. As my map decreases, so my bar scale is going to decrease. The numbers, though, don't change. They stay the same numeric value, which is kind of a problem. So if you get a map and one's big and one's small, and they've got the same number scale, but the bar scales are slightly different, go with the bar scale, because as the map increased, so did the bar scale. Okay, right, we're nearly at the end. In fact, that's our notes, our summary notes. And what we're going to do is we're probably going to take a break shortly, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to start looking at some questions to do with scale.
Awesome. And during this break, you have the challenge question. It's posted already on facebook.com/LearnExtra. So you've got something to do during this break. We'll see you after it. Welcome back, Mindsetters, and a big shout out to Kilebogile Lebo Malope, who's the first time Mindsetter watching the show today, saying, yeah, I'm doing grade 10, highlight me, I'm new on Mindset and willing to learn extra with all of you Mindsetters. Welcome, Kilebogile Realeboog. Right, Peter, I have good news.
Right, what's the good news? I won the calculator.
But you didn't enter, so you can't win.
Okay.
I mean, if I need to say something. If you don't enter, you can't win. Mindsetters, our winners from last week's show are, drum roll please, Ongezile Nyangana. Congratulations to you, Ongezile Nyangana. And again,
oh, they're getting me on this. Here we go.
Kitso Manake. Congratulations to you, Kitso Manake and Ongeziwe. This awesome gadget, it's coming your way. So it should always be in your bag and have it every time.
Oh, not another one.
For
Sorry,
yourself
okay,
now.
we'll just get on with the lesson. All right, folk, welcome back. Just before break, we were doing a little bit of a summary to do with maps and map scales and things. And we said that after the break, we'd get on with a few questions. Now, the first question I'm going to look at is so basic, is so straightforward, but I thought I would throw it in because with map work, we've got to have an understanding of direction. Okay, and this is a lovely type of question that comes up in a paper one. Now, before I even look at the type of question, let's just have a look at our directions. Okay, so guys, we know this. We know it backwards. Why? Because you learned it in grade 8 when you did geography. You learned it in grade 9. You did it in grade 10 maths lit. You did it in grade 11 maths lit. You're now in grade 12. We know you're going to learn it. We're just going to state it because you should know it by now. So, this is north. This is my south, my west, my east, my northeast, my southeast, my southwest, and my northwesterly directions. Okay? And remember, this is always west, that's always we. Why? Because we've got to spell the word we. Okay? So if you spell the word we, W-E. Okay? How are you looking at me? W-E. All right, here we go. Now, this question, although you're going to think it's kind of easy and straightforward, actually requires quite a bit of thought. Let's have a look at this. In which direction would you be facing if you rotate 270 degrees clockwise from northeast? Yes. Okay, now, gentlemen, to do this, we've got to have some form of understanding of how big and how small angles are. So, were I to give you a straight line, okay, and I said, right, we have a straight line. I know that this distance from that point to that point in degrees is 180 degrees. I know that the distance between these 2 points, that point and that point, in the form of degrees, is 90 degrees. And I can also presume that the distance between these two must be 45 degrees. Now, let's have a look at 270 degrees. How do we make up 270 degrees? Well, 270 degrees is going to be 180 degrees plus 90 degrees. If we add that up, we're going to land up with 270 degrees. So my starting point is northeast. I'm going to get a different color here. Let's go for purple or pink. Why? Just because I want to. Okay, so we're starting at this point here. We want to go clockwise. Now, guys, in the good old days, you used to have a clock face on your wrist. Okay? Nowadays, I think everyone goes digital. Or you pull out your cell phone and you check your time. That's what I do. That's why I don't have a watch anymore. And I really miss my watch. In fact, I'm going to go and buy myself a watch. But a watch is kind of nice. In the good old days, your hand or your second hand used to go tick, 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 tick. I could be here all day, but I'll just do it once or twice more. Tick, tick. Okay, so going in this direction is what we call clockwise. Okay, clockwise. Going in the other direction, so going this way, we call anti-clockwise. Now, we want to go clockwise. Because we want to go clockwise, I know I'm going to go in this direction over here. Now, going in that direction, I want to go 270. So I want to go a full 180. So I'm going a full 80 plus another 90. Can you see this 90 degree? Plus a 90 degree. So if I'm facing northeast and I turn 180 and another 90, where am I facing? I'm facing northwest. So my answer here is I will now be facing a northwesterly direction. Let's have a look at another one. 315 degrees anti-clockwise from east. So now what's happening, let me just rub all this other stuff out so you can see exactly what I'm doing here now. So let's just get rid of all that and a little bit of that. Cool, going well. And let's just get our white pen again. We said this was northeast, this was my east, and this was my northwest. Okay, so let's have a look. We're using pink. I'm starting at east. I'm going anti-clockwise, which means I'm going in this direction. I want to make up 315 degrees. Chaps, that means I've got 180 degrees and 90 degrees, which we said makes 270. If I add another 90 degrees, I'm going to land up with what? 0, 16, 360, which is kind of problematic. Okay, so we don't want 360, we want what do we want? 315. So if I now decide, okay, let's not add 90, but what we instead are going to add is we are going to add 45 degrees. Okay, so if I now add 45 degrees, I'm going to land up with 315. So I need a 180. If I start at east and I go 180, I end at west. Then I find another 90 degrees. Another 90 degrees, there it is, there takes me to south. I now add another 45 degrees, which is half a 90, which takes me to southeast. So my answer for that will be I'll be facing in a southeasterly direction. So that's not that easy, eh? That's actually quite complicated. All right. But if you understand that, you can understand anything to do with directions. And in map work, we tend to ask you certain questions about directions. And I thought I'd throw that in today because you'll see later on we might need to know that information. Okay, so let's have a look at our next question. Now we start with the real nitty-gritty stuff. Consider a map with a scale of 1 is to 250,000. What does this scale mean, or what does it indicate? Now, we spoke about this before the ad break, and I said to you that when I've got figures of 1 is to 250,000, it means 1 unit on my map represents 250,000 units in real life. What are the units? It doesn't matter. We could say 1 millimeter on my map represents 250,000 millimeters in real life. 1 centimeter on the map represents 250,000 centimeters in real life. Okay. Now you'll notice I'm using 2 different words here. I'm throwing them around. I'm saying map, and I'm using the term real life. Map, real life. Now, my students, if you were watching, you'd probably be rolling your eyes and thinking, oh, here we go again. Map, real life. Map, real life. Because in this section, I tell you what, if my guys don't write map, real life, and I'll show you how you got to write it, I just kind of lose self-control. Okay? You have got to remember the words map, real life. Because if you remember map and real life, and then also remember that units could be millimeters, centimeters, you can do anything with this section. What do I mean by that? Let's have a look at this first question. On the map, I have 35 centimeters. How many kilometers is that in real life? Okay, so the first thing is this: I've got a map and I've got the real life world out there. So I'm going to write that down. I'm going to say, Peter, you have the map and you have real life. We are working with the scale of 1 unit on the map represents 250,000 units in real life. Okay. But I don't want to know 1 unit on the map. I've got 35 centimeters. So I want this to be 35 centimeters, not 1. Now, how did I get that 1 to become 35 centimeters? How did I get that 1 to become 35 centimeters? I multiplied it. And so let's do that. We are going to say, to get that to there, we're going to multiply by 35 centimeters. Right. And guys, life is fair. Not always, but in math, it's always fair. And what we do to the one side, we've got to do to the other side. Okay. Ibrahim, are you an only child?
No.
Do you have another brother or so?
Yes.
Okay, cool. How would you feel, Ibrahim, if your parents had come to you? What's your brother's name?
Olani.
Of course, it would be that. All right. If your brothers came, or if your parents
Olani
came,
and Isaac.
okay, we'll go Isaac. Because I haven't got the click yet. It's kind of my tongue and my palate don't work together. All right. So how would you feel if your parents went to Isaac and said, Isaac, we are giving you 1,000 rand. Okay? Mm-hmm. How would you feel?
What about me?
What about absolutely? Okay. And well within your rights, because you are one of the children. Okay? So your parents say to your brother, Isaac, 1,000 rand. Mm-hmm. They then say to your other brother, Kulani. Kulani. Okay, we're getting there. Yeah. Kulani, 1,000 rand. Okay. And within you, Abraham, there's an excitement. Mm-hmm. Okay, why? Because you know, because your brother's got something, you're also going to get that.
Exactly.
Okay. So that excitement begins to build up. And then your parents say, that's it, folks, we just wanted you to know that. And they walk out the room. Okay? How are you going to feel?
I know. I won't like that.
Okay, you're going to be totally
especially
shaken.
the last part, no.
Absolutely.
No.
All right. You're going to
I deserve something too.
And rightfully so. Mm. And if your parents are fair, what they do to the one son, they'll do to the other child. Mm. Okay? My mom and dad used to believe that as well. Mm. If we hit the one child, we hit the other. Which is kind of unfair, but that's another story. Okay, so to get 35 multiplied by 35 centimeters. We've done something this side, folk. Because we've done something this side, we're now going to do the same thing the other side. Right. So we're going to now multiply by 35 centimeters as well. Right, and when I say we're going to multiply, I don't really mean we're going to multiply. I mean the calculator's going to multiply. So let's do that. Out comes our calculator, and we say, right, we've got 250,000. We're going to multiply that by 35, and we get an answer of, and I always forget these things, so you've got to help me and remember this, 8,750,000. That should be easy to remember, okay? Equals 8,750,000 centimeters, okay? Take note of our units, guys. To get 1 to 35 centimeters, we multiplied by 35 centimeters. So we had to multiply by 35 centimeters on the other side, and so our unit is in centimeters. So we know that 35 centimeters on the map. So if I got my ruler and I measured 35, okay, that's 30 plus a little bit more. Here I've got another ruler. I'm really organized tonight, eh? It's quite scary. So here we go from this side all the way through to 5. It would be nice if I could see though. All from where this finger starts all the way through to this side over here, that's 35 centimeters. That our distance on my map represents 8,750,000 centimeters in real life, out there in the world. Okay, so we've answered the question. Actually, we haven't, okay, because the question said 35 centimeters is equal to how many kilometers? Now, folk, whether we like this or not, right? This is something you've just got to know, you've got to learn, and you've got to know it off by heart. You have got to know how many millimeters there are in a centimeter. You've got to know how many centimeters there are in a meter. You've got to know how many meters there are in a kilometer. Guys, you just got to know that, all right? So tonight, when you go to bed, and you've done everything you have to do, like brush your teeth, kiss your folks goodnight, give everyone a hug, say your prayers, get into bed and say, there are 10 millimeters in a centimeter. There are 100 centimeters in a meter. And there are 1,000 meters in a kilometer. Good night and go to sleep. I think it's a great way to go
If
to
I
sleep.
was the mindsetter, I was going to record that.
You were going to quote that. Okay. And here's the exciting thing. You can actually cheat in an exam. Ooh, that's bad, but it's true. You just take your ruler, guys, and you look at your ruler, and you see that's 1 centimeter. And in that one little, in fact, let me come up close. Okay, the producer's going to talk to me and tell me when I must stop. Okay, because I hope you're focusing on the ruler, not my face. Okay, so there we go. Now, if you look carefully, you can see that that's going to be 1 centimeter from a millimeter. But you can count little millimeters inside that 1 centimeter. And they're actually 10. Okay. If we flip the ruler around, we can see that distance is 1 centimeter. And we flip it around again, and we see that it also equals 10 millimeters. In other words, guys, we are telling you 10 millimeters and 1 centimeter. Your ruler's telling you that. And the exciting thing is you're allowed to take a ruler into the exam. So it's not kind of cheating, but it's such a pleasure to know that. The other thing is this, you know that a ruler, if you take 3 rulers and a little bit more, you get a meter. So if you got 30 centimeters, 30 centimeters, 30 centimeters, and a little bit more, which is another 10 centimeters, you make up a meter ruler, okay, or a meter. So you know 100 centimeters make up a meter. And another way to remember it is this, that when I jump from millimeters to centimeters, oops, what on earth did I do there? There we go, okay. From millimeters to centimeters is a jump of 10. From centimeters to meters is a jump of 100. And from meters to kilometers is a jump of 1,000. Okay, so you can see it's getting bigger, bigger, and bigger. Right. And with my boys that I teach, and I teach boys, that's why I'm saying boys, but even if I had to teach girls, I would always say this. Just remember, 10, 100, 1,000. And if you got that in mind, you can do absolutely anything. Now, I know it's almost time for an ad break, but I just want to finish this quickly. Now, how we want to change centimeters to kilometers, right? So we know we've got to get smaller because there are fewer kilometers in a centimeter. All right, so here we go. Centimeters. From centimeters to kilometers, there's 100,000. So we're going to take this horrible figure here of 8,750,000 and we're going to divide it by the 100 and divide it by the 1,000. So again, I'm not going to confuse my brain. I'm going to do it on the calculator. Divide it by 100, divided by 1,000 equals, voila, here's my answer. It is 87.5. So I know there are 87.5 kilometers represented out there in the big, wild, ugly world. 87.5 kilometers out there can be represented by 35 centimeters on my map. So that distance on my map represents 87.5 kilometers out there in the big wide world.
So your world is on your left.
The world is there. That side is the insanity side. That's why you're sitting that side. And the world is out there. All right, I kid you not. I think it's time for an ad break before we get out of control.
It is that time, but I just noticed something. You love yellow and purple, right?
I like all colors, yeah.
No, those two colors, because your ruler is your rulers are purple and yellow, and your t-shirt is purple. I need to ask myself a question. But otherwise, Manchester, stay tuned, because after the break, I've got exciting news to share with you, so do stay tuned. Welcome back, Mindsetters. I've got so much to say with you guys, to share with you, Mindsetters. Firstly, there's this comment from Setu Nehemiah saying, "You're such a good teacher. I understand your lesson. Please say my name." So that is Setu Nehemiah. I just said your name, and thank you for being a Mindsetter and being on the page. But the great news are we're having a sports show that is playing tonight. It is a show that most Mindsetters enjoy. It's after this show at 7 o'clock. It's called The Wrap. It's a magazine talk show. So it's all about sports reviews that are happening in schools, interviews, nice stuff that are happening in the schools. Maybe they might come also to your school, Mindsetter. So do check out that show at 7 o'clock, straight after this show. It is about sports.
That sounds great. And they say a healthy body or a healthy mind requires a healthy body. So you should all be playing some sport.
That's
anyway,
what they say. That's not what you say.
That's what they say. I never know who the they are. Have you ever heard that, Ibrahim? They always say, they say. And you think, who are these mysterious they that are out there somewhere? Okay, it's true. Hey, and it normally happens when a boss is trying to tell people to do something. They say, research says. And you always think, who is the they? But I digress. Let's get on with the program. This is our last section before we end off today. Guys, here behind me, I've got a wonderful map. And the map is showing a little bit here of Port St. John's, East London area, Port Elizabeth, all the Eastern Cape. And it goes on to show a little bit of Lesotho and a little bit, of course, as well of the Free State. You can see Bloemfontein up on the top center of the screen. Okay, I feel a little bit like a weatherman doing this. Don't I? You know, all I need to do is say, and there's a cold front coming in this side, and then it will go perfectly. All right, but that's a story for another day. Let's get on. Now, looking at this map, the most important thing about this map that I want you to take note of is this thing over here, folk. Okay, let's just go up slightly. There it is. Okay, can you see that? I don't know if you can see the white very clearly, but you can see that they are saying a certain length on that map represents 100 kilometers in real life. Okay, so now what's the first thing we do when we're dealing with scale? We write down two words: map, real life. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, right, I've got the map and I've got real life. And unfortunately, my producer hasn't left me very much room here, so I'm going to try squeeze it in. Map, real life. Now, on the map, I know when I take my ruler and I measure this distance, I'm getting a distance of about 90 centimeters. Okay, not 90 centimeters, sorry, 90 millimeters. Let me just try and get that. 95 millimeters. So I know 95 millimeters on my map represents 100 kilometers in real life. Okay, I'm just double checking myself here. Yep, 95 millimeters represents 100 kilometers in real life. That means, guys, that for every distance, this amount of distance, okay, if I were to measure that on a map and then go out in real life, it would mean I would have to walk 100 kilometers to cover that distance, which is symbolized on the map. Okay, now do we understand that? Now let's have a look at the question. The question was this. In the good old days, SAA, which stands for South African Airways, used to fly from Durban to East London to Port Elizabeth and then on to Cape Town, instead of flying directly from Durban to Cape Town. How far would the plane fly between East London and Port Elizabeth? Okay, guys, so I remember as a little kid getting on an aeroplane and going from Durban all the way through to Cape Town. And the flight didn't go directly. You used to take off, have a cup of tea, swallow a biscuit, and land in East London. Then people would get off, other people would get on, you take off, have a cup of tea, have a few biscuits, and land in Port Elizabeth. People would get off, other people would get on, you take off, have a cup of tea. No, you'd now have a cup of coffee because you were sick and tired of tea. You already had 2 cups. So you'd have a cup of coffee, have 3 more biscuits because the air hostess got to know you and she thought you were cute. So you'd have 3 biscuits and then land in Cape Town. Right. So the question now is this. How far would the plane fly between East London and Port Elizabeth? So here's East London. Let's get, here's East London over here. And here's Port Elizabeth over there. So first thing we've got to do is be able to measure how far that distance is on the map. So when I put my ruler down and measure across, I get a distance of 22 centimeters, okay, or 220 millimeters. Now guys, I'm really going to try and fit this in here. In fact, let me go all the way down here. Okay, so we said, let me just extend this. We've got the map and we've got real life. We said, according to our map, 95 millimeters represents 100 kilometers. When we measured this distance, we got 220 millimeters. And we want to work out how far is that in real life. Now, guys, one of the magic things about doing this whole scale is always to work with what I call a magic number, and that's the number 1. So before I find out what 220 is, I want to find out how far is 1 millimeter. Now, how did I get that 95 to become 1? I divide it by 95. And I'm going to do the same this side. I'm going to divide by 95. So I've got 100 divided by 95. Now I don't want 1, I want 220. How do I get the 1 to become 220? I multiply by 220. And I'm going to do the exact same thing this side. Multiply by 220. So I've got 100 over 95 times 220. And that'll tell me how many kilometers this plane is actually flying from East London to Port Elizabeth. Okay, out comes my calculator because I'm not going to do this in my head. I've got fraction button, 95 over 100. No, I don't. What do I have? I have 100 over 95. Okay, let's start that again. I've got 100 over 95, and I'm going to multiply this by 220 equals, and my answer works out to being 231,58. 231,58 kilometers. Okay, now, I know what a lot of people are saying out there. They're saying, hold on, I've travelled between East London and Port Elizabeth, and it's further than 231 kilometres. And you're absolutely right. But remember, when you travel there with a car, your car does windy things along the road. Okay? A car doesn't just say, right, here I am in East London, I'm going to Port Elizabeth, let's go in a straight line, doof, doof, over mountains and things. Well, my mother-in-law does that, but the normal human being doesn't do that, okay? You follow the road. Right. But an aeroplane takes off, let's head off that direction. When you get an aeroplane, it doesn't do like dum and then dum, and it doesn't do that. It just goes straight. Just before landing, it might turn to correct itself and get it ready for the airport. But when you're flying, straight line. Okay, and that's why this distance works out to 231,58 kilometers. There is so much more that I would love to do with this section. And if you look at the notes, and they can find the notes on that thing.
On land.mindset.co.za, but they are posted on Facebook.
Absolutely, and it's just on Facebook. If you look at all the notes, you can see all the types of examples. What I want to do now, because we've only got 7 minutes, I want to look at our challenge question. So let's just find this challenge question quickly, and there it is there. The distance between Durban and Johannesburg is 570 kilometers. Would it be practical to use a map with a scale of 1 is to 125,000. Now guys, this 1 is to 125,000. What are we going to write? We write map, real life. Okay? So we know what these figures represent. We know one unit on the map represents 125,000 units in real life. I want to know what is 570 kilometers, and that's a real life figure. Hey? So we want 570 kilometers. Now, folks, before I find 570, let's find 1. How did I get that 125,000 to become 1? I divided by 125,000. Because 125,000 divided by 125,000 gives me 1. And what we do to one side, we have to do to the other side completely. Okay? So now I've got 1 over 125,000. But I don't want 1, I want 570 kilometers. How do I get this 1 to being 570 kilometers? I'm going to multiply by 570 kilometers. And what I do to one side, I've got to do to the other side. Okay? So we're going to take that and multiply it by 570 kilometers. So I've got 1 over 125,000. Multiply that now by 570 kilometers. And I'm not going to do that because my brain is not big enough to do things like that. Okay? I'm going to get the calculator to do that for me. So, out comes the calculator. And what did we say? We're just going to shift our calculator to the side. I must say, Brim, I always enjoy shifting the calculator because I just imagine our poor producer at the back thinking, what's he doing with this calculator? Okay, so here we go. Fraction button, 1 over 125,000, okay? And we're going to multiply that now by 570, and we land up now with an answer of, and Ibrahim, I really need you to help me remember this, 0,00456. So I've got 0,00456. It was actually quite easy. Kilometers. Okay. So 570 kilometers in real life is actually 0,00456 kilometers on the map. Well, it's kind of hard to know how long 0,0456 kilometers is. So I'm going to change it to centimeters. Okay. Now, how do I change that to centimeters? Well, if I've got 0,00456 kilometers, to change it to meters, we're going to multiply that by 1,000. To change meters to centimeters, we're going to multiply by 100. So again, out comes my calculator, and we're going to say, right, let's multiply that by 1,000. Then we're going to multiply it again by 100, and we get an answer of 456 centimeters. Okay. Now, guys, 456 centimeters. If you think that this is 30, okay, 456 is like just over 4.5 meters. So there's my answer, 570 kilometers. If I'm looking at a map that's showing Durban to Johannesburg, and we know that's a distance of 570 kilometers, and I use a scale of 1:125,000, I need a map that's just over 4.5 meters long. Now guys, 1 meter is the length of my arm, from my shoulder to the tip of my fingers, okay? So I need a map that's 4 of these. And if we had a what kind of camera am I looking for? If we had a moving about camera. Roaming, that's the word I'm looking for. If we had a roaming camera, I could actually walk across this room and show you exactly how 4.5 meters is. But it's more than 4 times the distance from my shoulder to the tip of my finger. 4 of them. Okay. Now, guys, here's the actual question. The question didn't ask me to see how many centimeters it required, but I had to find that to answer the question. And the question is, would it be practical to use a map with that scale? Guys, it would be totally and completely and utterly impractical, because I would have to have a map 4 meters, okay, more than double my arm's length in a car. Could you imagine opening a map 4 meters long, trying to plot your route from Joburg to Durban? Guys, impractical. Totally, completely, and utterly impractical. That is the answer to that question.
Awesome. Thanks, Mindsetters, who got the question right. Big ups to you guys. I see Donnie, Mono, Freddy, and Katleo, and all other guys. Thank you, guys. But unfortunately, we have to end it there.
Yeah, I just can't believe how quick our time goes. It really does. I mean, I've got so many questions. We could have carried on with this for another 2 or 3
Tell you what,
sessions.
we are having a show on Saturday, so the Mindsetters should look out for that show. Rather, we have a shift in the schedule. The Mats Lit is going to play at 4 o'clock. So Mindsetters, on Saturday, we have a live schoolboy rugby. It is the Sax versus the Bishop. So make sure that you catch that from 11:30 to 1 o'clock. Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you very much for having us. And we'll be back next week. And hopefully we'll have James and maybe another buddy in the studio with us again.
Hopefully, but otherwise, Mindsetters, remember that learning doesn't stop here. It continues, and keep on believing in yourself, because as Mindset, we always believe in you guys. We love you and have a great evening. Up next, it is The Rap Show. It's a sports show, so do catch that. We love you. And Peter, let's just say
cheers.
Peace.
Oh, peace.